Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of the Celtic Star podcast, where we're going to this evening do something a little bit unusual for us. We're going to select a team of the Greatest Celtic team before Lisbon. And to select that team, we're going to have three writers from the Celtic Star, David Potter, Matt Corr, and Liam Kelly. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Hi, David.
So, David, am I right in saying that there'll be players that you will have actually seen and who fall into the category here, eligible for this team?
Probably not. Probably not. There's nobody that I've seen pre-Lisbon that I would include in my team. I don't think so.
No, but
Charlie Tully, Willie Fernie might just make it, but my recollections of them are scant.
okay. So we're basically, if we take it from that, then we're really going on the history, anything that people's read or talking to parents and grandparents about the legendary Celtic stories, the way that it used to be done, and in order to get this team. So it's really going to be quite interesting how we pulled this together. Liam, obviously you're the youngest of us all. How would you go about picking your team?
So you're kind of relying on old newspaper reports, relying on like statistics, and then I've got a couple of older friends, sort of family friends that are in their late 70s, so their parents and things who have memories of people like, they say Patsy Gallagher was their dad's favourite player, and that type of thing. So you can get little flashes of clips, but really it's mostly, there's not that much footage that you can access to go right back that far, so it's quite kind of reliant on a mix between sort of word of mouth stats and old newspaper reports.
Matt, when was the first substitute allowed in a game?
1966, David,
Right.
from memory, 1966.
Okay, so what we'll do here is, it's not going to be historically accurate, but what we'd like to do is add a substitute to your teams. And so that could be, an ace up the sleeve, somebody you couldn't have got into the team because they're maybe two great centre forwards, or so it gives you a chance to put someone on the bench. So we'll end up with starting 11 here and one substitute. We'll try and get the team collective between the opinions of us all, and then we'll write it up and publish it in the Celtic Star and obviously on the podcast. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds fine, David. The
Yes.
other thing I'd ask, your earlier question about how do you pull together your team, I thought I'd get slaughtered there saying that you'd expected me to have seen half the team live. So you'd obviously been nice to me this morning, but this evening. But the other thing for me when I was picking my team is with a contribution to Celtic, I guess, to the Celtic story, Celtic's history. So yes, very much stories passed down and lots of stuff that we've read, but also I've looked at their contribution to Celtic over the years. So that's been my approach.
I'd heard the rumour, Matt, that you were one of the ball boys at the 7-1 game and put the Rangers goalkeeper off, so they were wanting a replay.
Yeah, I knew it was only a matter of time. Okay, we'll get. Listen, revenge is the best served calls. So just remember that.
I'm not going on a Celtic tour again. Anyway, tell you that. So can we start on the goalkeeper, guys? And so do you want to start with you, Matt? So if you could tell us who your goalkeeper choice would be for this Greatest Celtic team pre-Lisbon.
Yeah, well, there's only one choice for me. I know there's a number of great candidates, but for me it's John Thompson. For a number of reasons, I guess. I guess the legend, and one of my earliest memories of being a Celtic supporter is listening to the Johnny Thompson song, one of my dad's albums, which I've still got. The Holy Ground of Glasgow Celtic, you probably know it. It's the one with the rosette on the turf, and I think the opening song after there's a sort of anthem, an intro to the album where the Celtic fans all sing, and then it moves right into quickly to the Johnny Thompson song. So it's always been it's always been so. Thompson's always fascinated me, and if you think about it, he paid as a young man of 23. He paid the ultimate price. He gave his life for Celtic, saving a goal at Ibrox. He literally couldn't make the stuff up. So you read about Thompson. Sold at bought at 17. The Celtic first team at 18. Scotland's goalkeeper at 22. Even it beggars belief what he might have achieved. Had September 1931 turned out differently. So for me, it's Johnny Thompson all the way.
What about you, David?
Right. Well, I would not disagree with Johnny Thompson at all, and I'm from Fife, of course, very close to Cardenden. But I think I would go for Charlie Shaw, as in Shaw, McNair, and Dodds, simply because he was there from 1913 to 1925, I think, and he was just a great character, a great goalkeeper, a great shot stopper, and a great captain for a spell. So I would go for Charlie Shaw. One that I wouldn't discount, Miller, who was the goalkeeper during the dark years of the Second World War. And by all accounts, he was a very, very good goalkeeper, but he played in a bad team. So
Sorry, what was his name again,
I would
David?
have to go for Charlie Shaw. Sorry?
What was the last goalkeeper you mentioned?
Willie Miller.
Willie Miller,
Who
yes.
played in the Second World War for Celtic.
Right, okay.
Can I tell you, we Aberdeen game at Pittodrie when the Aberdeen fans started singing "There's only one Willie Miller" about their and he was a damn sight better than either of these two, pointing to Pat Bonner and Jim Leighton. So Willie Miller would be good, but Charlie Shaw.
Did we not sing a song about there's only two certain Rangers players at one point, which was quite amusing? Liam, can we move on to you?
Yes, I'd heard Willie Miller be described as Celtic's busiest goalkeeper before. John Thompson, as Matt mentioned, had done really well, and I considered Dan MacArthur as well from the early years. But I would agree with David that I would go for Charlie Shaw in the context of what they called the Holy Trinity, with him, McNair and Dodds in front of him, because in the 1913-14 season, he didn't concede a goal for a record. It was an estimated 1,287 minutes. So just on that basis, I felt like I had to go with him. But obviously, it's difficult without actually seeing the matches to know 100%, because obviously he had such a strong defensive pairing in front of him. But that's the reason why I go for Charlie Shaw as well.
I mean, one thing worth mentioning is the protection that these goalkeepers would have had playing the game. It's a lot different to the game we're watching now. It had to have been really, a brave man to do that job.
Well, obviously no gloves, and you just get barged into the net as well.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the argument for the goalkeeper, chaps. So if we want to move on to right back, and will we start with you, David?
I think, as I've just recently written a book on Alec McNair, I can't really go past Alec McNair. Icicle, Celtic's icicle, Alec McNair, again played for such a long time for the club, and a great leader. He was a captain for a wee while. He wasn't a captain all the time, but he was a great leader, a great defender, and I think I can't really go past Alec McNair. Put it this way, I would put Alec McNair, if you could compare Alec McNair with anybody that I've seen, that's great praise. But Alec McNair is the right back for me.
David, would you think he would be better than Danny McGrain?
about the same standard. I would imagine him being about the same standard, except Danny was just a wee bit more. He was such a great fullback, and he teamed in. I mean, I love that story about when he was playing golf and he didn't know what to do with it, and somebody says to him, pass it back to Charlie, because that's what he did. I mean, in these days, the pass back rule was allowed, and McNair was brilliant at it, and it once failed. I think it was New Year's Day 1915, and Rangers scored. It was 60, I can't remember, but it was such a pass back, and it didn't work, because usually it did.
Right, okay.
Alec McNair for me.
Alec McNair, right, brilliant. Matt?
Yeah, the same. Alec McNair every day of the week. It's interesting you mentioned Danny McGrain there, because I think in the foreword I did for David's book, I described, and again through reading and taking in the information, Alec McNair came across to me as a combination of Danny McGrain and Billy McNeil, and I can't really speak higher than that. So Alec McNair for me every day of the week. Okay,
that's 2 votes for Alec. Liam?
Yeah, I say there's going to be some positions that we'll have a difference of opinion on, and a few different ones that are up for debate, but I don't think there can really be any debate that it has to be Alec McNair. So well over 600 games for the club. It's won 12 league titles, 6 Scottish Cups, a number of other trophies as well at the Glasgow Cups and things. So he's one of the best ever Celtic players, let alone just pre-Lisbon.
It's amazing. I think we talked about this previously. He's almost like an unsung hero as well, because he just really doesn't have the recognition that the McGrorys and the Patsy Gallaghers and guys like that have got, and where his achievements are incredible.
I think David's books went a long way towards addressing that. We talked about it's been the best Celtic story never told, and thankfully now it has been told. And I even pick it up on the tours. The amount of folk that know about Alec McNair, I definitely think has increased as a result of the publicity through, around David's book. It's my opinion.
David, I was up at Pittodrie with Matt on and during the week, and delighted to hear them singing "Putting on the Style."
Yes, indeed. Yes, I heard that on the TV.
It was Matt that started it, right enough.
We can fast back there.
So do you want to move on to left back? Liam, do you go first?
Yeah, left back, I've gone with Joe Dodds, as I mentioned earlier, part of the Holy Trinity. Again, he won, I think, 8 titles with Celtic, and was just part of that record-breaking defence for the shutout in the 1913-14 season. I found through some of the research in my World War II book actually about Joe Dodds that because he became like an assistant trainer after he finished playing with Celtic, and when they got rid of him during the war years, he didn't get any payoff, and he felt that he should have been given 4 weeks' wages, which I think he wanted. It worked out at like £20, so he took Celtic to the small claims court. And he lost his case because there was never actually a contractual agreement in place on that. I think the chairman, Tom White, had said that had there been any agreement like that, then they never would have given him the job. So it's a bit of a sad ending when I find out that like an iconic player that's a club legend like that ended up having that sort of ending after his playing career. But say as a player, he won so many things with Celtic over a long period of time, and was part of one of the best defences we've ever had.
So many players. George McCluskey quite recently was talking about leaving Celtic and not wanting to leave, and the kind of money that he was asking for. And Davy Hay came in and he was trying his best, and the old board were just you're talking 30 quid or something more, and we would have stayed and been quite happy to. So I think the whole story of Celtic has got this all the way through, and which is quite sad, as you say. Matt, you're next up for left back.
Yeah, well, here's back then. I'm going with Iron Man. I'm going with Sean Fallon. One of the things we spoke about earlier on in terms of, I guess, their contribution to the story. Another aspect is versatility. So Sean at left back, in part of that fabulous side of the 50s, who you might argue underperformed in terms of volume, but certainly won some of the most significant victories in our history, Hampden and the Sun, Coronation Cup. But Sean as well, also, as I say, played at left back, starred for Celtic in 1954, Scottish Cup finals. Sean scored the winning goal for a pass from Wally Fernie against Aberdeen, which was Celtic's first League and Cup double for 40 years, would you believe, since the time of Melee. So, and latterly, obviously, Sean, played a huge role in the success run about Lisbon, and was unfurled the flag, I think, in his 90th year. So for me, some fabulous contenders in there. But I've went with Sean Fallon.
Excellent. David, left back.
I would introduce two others into the equation. One would be Dan Doyle of the 1890s, and the other would be William Peter McGonigal of the 1930s. Both of them were excellent players, I think. McGonigal, particularly a real gutsy character. Doyle, very much a charismatic character, and probably like Tommy Gemmell in some ways. A bit like Tommy Gemmell, he could attack, but he could also get into trouble, which is what Tommy Gemmell could do. So I would introduce these two, and I would certainly put them in the frame for Joe Dodds. So I'm afraid I'm going to be very, very predictable and say Shaw, McNair and Dodds. I don't think it can get past Dodds, because Dodds could play at left half as well. He played for a long time at left half after Jimmy Hay went to Newcastle in 1911, and he played well there. But very good.
Okay.
In well with the other two. So I'm afraid Shaw.
Right. Well, if he was like Tommy Gemmell, then that's good enough for me, I think. And how will we do the positions for will we do centre half, or how will we describe the position for the other defenders?
Well, we could do it a couple of ways. Maybe go with the wing halves and the centre half, or the full half-back line. Maybe go with the wing halves. Does that work? So number 4 and number 6, I guess, in old money.
Okay. So number 4, wing half. Matt, do you want to start on that?
Yeah. Okay. As I say, I'll do anything for a fast buck. My number 4 is Willie Fernie, putting on the style. And again, a bit like Sean and a couple of others in my team as well. He could play in a number of positions, but Willie Fernie at right half, and in old speak, number 4, was the main man in the 7-1 game, Hampden and the Sun. So I know he made his name. Folk think of Willie as a winger or an inside forward, I guess. But Willie at number 4 was my choice for right half, putting on the style, Willie Fernie.
That sounds good. David?
It's a position which Celtic have all from the start. Well, from the start, there's Sonny Jim.
I'm not hearing you, David.
And the one that I'm going to, I would go. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I would go for Peter Wilson in the 1930s, rather than Willie Fernie, or even Sonny Jim is again one of my favourites. And newspaper reports gets the blame for giving the goal away, which and I think he lacked the. And they used to say about Peter Wilson, he didn't pass a ball, he stroked it and caressed it. So I would go for Peter Wilson as my right half.
Really, I'm struggling to get a lot of that, David. It's really coming and going. Is that the same with you guys?
Yeah, it was, but I did pick up, and again, reading David's stuff, Sonny Jim Young was a contender, but he went for Peter Wilson from the 1930s.
Peter Wilson, right, okay. And Liam?
I went with Sonny Jim Young, because he was part of the 6 in a row league team, which was probably Celtic's greatest team before Lisbon, and then won another 4 league titles in a row as well. And he was always described as being like the perfect link between attack and defence. You know, a hard-working, aggressive kind of player. And as well, he had quite a sad story because he died in an accident where he was in the sidecar of a motorcycle and it collided with the tram. I think it was in Kilmarnock that happened, and he was, during the collision, he was thrown out of the sidecar and basically died later in hospital that day. I think he was only 40 years old. Sad story with him, but he was, say, a player that won so much with Celtic and was described as like the perfect link between sort of defence and attack. So I went for him. I considered other players like Malcolm McDonald, Willie Fanny as well. Jim Hayes, who captain during that 6 in a row winning team as well. But I just felt like I couldn't leave out James Young.
Okay.
Before you move away, David, just another honourable mention for me for number 4 in my initial pick, because I've changed my mind a couple of times, I guess, but it's Paddy Cairns. I just missed watching for Celtic, and again, listening to stories, you know, Cairns obviously went on to win European Cup with Man United, and apparently was a wonderful player, so he was very much in my thoughts with the number 4 position.
You would have seen him play, David.
I did see Pat Cairns playing, and he was compared by my father to Peter Wilson. And when my father compared a modern player, as he was in the 1960s with the 1930s, he was good. So, yeah, Pat Cairns was very good, but I never forgive him for leaving us in 1963. I'm not good at forgiving people that...
Bear that in mind, David.
We won't get you onto Charlie Nicholas then, David.
I'm just worried, David, what's going to happen when we sell.
No, please don't. Please don't.
What you said, Matt?
I'm saying I'm just worried how David's going to react when we sell David Potter to Manchester United from the Celtic Star team.
That's right. Or Newcastle United, you mean?
Going in a Bosman.
Aye, not to Newcastle.
Newcastle.
Have you not noticed that these Saudi Arabian guys have come into Newcastle and suddenly David's got a Newcastle United book out?
Opportunity knocks.
So what position are we on now, Matt? Are we on number
5?
Number 5.
Let's just do it through, yeah.
Okay. Centre half, David.
Difficult. Two Willies. Loney was obviously the time of young Loney and Hay, and that maybe says it all. Willie Lyon was our captain at the Empire Exhibition Trophy. And I suppose you could bring in Bobby Evans as well. I mean, Bobby Evans was sometimes right half, but he was more a centre half at the, I think I would go for the old guy again. I think I would go for Willie Loney. I feel bad about not going for Sonny Jim, so I have to compensate a wee bit, and I'll go for Willie Loney.
Okay, Liam, centre half.
So I was thinking about Willie Lyon as well. I've looked into him a lot in the World War II book that I'm doing. So he was a great captain and a great player at that time. Considered Bobby Evans as well, and even the likes of Bertie Peacock that I could sort of move in there to accommodate if I had to. But I'm not going for any of them, or Willie Loney or Jim Hay. I am actually going for James Kelly, because the saying was no Kelly, no Celtic, as it would have been pronounced at the time. No Kelly, no Celtic. See, he won the first league titles and first Scottish Cups with Celtic, and see if you having quotes like that, no Kelly, no Celtic, then that kind of sums up the importance of him. So I went for James Kelly.
Fantastic. And you, Matt?
I can't believe you just stole my thunder, Liam. I thought I had a right wild card. I'm no Kelly, no Celtic. for me, James Kelly is Celtic's first superstar. And I guess without Kelly, you could, and perhaps, here's a controversial statement for you, perhaps Celtic's most important signing ever on the pitch, because I reckon that it was James Kelly. So Kelly was a superstar his day with Renton. Renton were the unofficial world champions. They were sweeping the boards here. It was a teammate of Neil McCallum's. But anyway, Kelly was the main man, and Celtic managed to convince him to sign for the new club, Celtic. Of course, he played in the first game. And on the back of Kelly signing, I reckon all these other fabulous players came from Hibs and the other teams, which allowed Celtic in their first season to reach the Scottish Cup final and basically hit the ground, not just running, but sprinting. So James Kelly, for me, hugely important member of the team. As you say, no Kelly, no Celtic. Celtic's first superstar. James Kelly, centre-half for me.
Looks like that might be the nod there then, David. You're outvoted.
Can I ask a question here, Matt? Can I ask you a question? Are you like proud, Matt, of Mr. Kelly's son and his grandsons?
I missed what the first part of the question was. It was probably just as well.
I was just asking, are you equally proud? Are you proud of Kelly's sons and his? Because I'm not.
Well, I mean, I thought that's where you might be going with that one. So I'm waiting for my lawyer to arrive. But how would I answer that? Well, let's talk about his son, Robert Kelly. Robert Kelly, very, very divisive guy, I guess, with support. Made a lot of decisions, allegedly, in the background in terms of team selection, interference, and whatever that did not go down well. But on the positive side, you couldn't argue that Bob Kelly did not have Celtic at heart in some of the fights he took on our behalf. So a divisive character. I won't talk about the 90s guys. I'm just going to leave it at that. But in terms of his son did a lot of great things for Celtic, and obviously he got some negative press as well. I don't know how tactful that was.
Yes, well, it left us all speechless, I think. Right, so next position, Matt, what are we going to do? We've done 1 to 6 so far.
Left half. So I'm going to go with a real stalwart. It's been mentioned already because, again, like a lot of my players, they're versatile, played a number of positions. Bobby Evans, every time I say that, I hear Billy Connolly shouting Bobby Evans in that sketch that he done a few years ago. But Bobby Evans came into the team obviously as a wing half. Yeah. He was not a tall man, but he was a strong guy. He played central defence. Initially, when I picked my team, I thought I'd been really clever, really cute, and I picked him in a 4-2-4 formation. So you sort of sickened with happiness at the start there, by saying we're going 1 to 11. So, but Bobby Evans and James Kelly, for me, would be my central defenders. But Bobby was a wing half, so my half-back line is Sperney, Kelly, and Evans.
Okay. David?
I think I could go for Jimmy Hay, for Dun Hay. That's a possibility. There's one that I particularly like in the 1920s called Jean McFarlane. So it's pronounced Jean McFarlane because of the French, Jean McFarlane. He comes across very well. There was Geetons, also from Fife. I'm biased in favour of Fife. Check Geetons. And Bertie Peacock. Certainly Bertie Peacock. I think he was very, very good indeed. I would think so. I think though I'll go back to the old days again and go for Jimmy Hay. Jimmy Dunhay, because he was a great side.
Okay, fantastic. On to you.
So my half-back line is Wilson, Loney, and Hay.
Wilson, Loney, and Hay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. For me, as I said, I was thinking about Jimmy Hay at centre half, and then I thought, should I go for him at left half? There was another guy as well that I forgot to mention that I was thinking about for centre half was Barney Battles. So I thought about bringing him out of position over to the left as well. And again, Willie Loney. And as usual, I've not gone for any of them. And I've gone with Peter Wilson. So although he was a right half, I'm saying he can play on the left, because he said he was described as being a really cool-headed player and a really, really good passer of the ball. So I'm saying if he can do it on the right, he can do it on the left. So my half-back line is Jem Young, James Kelly, and Peter Wilson. I feel really bad for leaving out Loney and Hay, but after a lot of mental anguish, that's what I finally settled on.
Okay. Right, so Matt, next position, what one are we talking now?
We're at outside right, number 7.
Number
7 shots. Am I first to go this time?
You go first if you want, yes.
Okay, well, I'm going another absolute legend. I'm going with Jimmy Delaney from Ireland. Wonderful winger. Played like I think the goalkeeper mentioned earlier on, played through the war, which I guess was probably to his detriment in terms of winning trophies. Jimmy Delaney then later went on to become a star at Manchester United, won an FA Cup there, 1948, and then he also completed a circuit winning in Ireland. So Cork City, I think, from memory, David could probably keep it right, but certainly Jimmy Delaney has medals from England, Scotland, and Ireland.
I think it was Derry City. Derry City.
So Jimmy's got medals, 3 FA Cup medals, for 3. Wonderful career at Celtic, albeit interrupted by war, and I guess knowing maybe also it's a big Celtic family in Cleveland. John Kennedy, I think John Kennedy's his grandson.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Delaney on the wing for me, number 7.
Okay, Liam, your choice for outside right?
I thought I was going to be unique in also going for Jimmy Delaney, because he scored 160 goals in 305 games. Just checking up on my notes there. They say that he's an unbelievably skillful winger, and so yeah, it was Derry City that he won. It was in the north of Ireland. He won the supposed national cup competition there, but then with Cork Hibernians for the Irish Free State, he lost in the final. I think they lost to Shamrock Rovers. But another thing as well to mention about him was that he came back during World War II. He'd been out for almost 2 years, I think, with a really bad broken arm that almost stopped him from playing, and had a lot of failed operations. And so when I'm going through each game in the war years, he basically single-handedly sort of carried Celtic through that period. Some of the goals he scored, and he's always recorded as the standout player, or the one that the oppositions had to try and mark out the game. So I had considered like Bobby Collins, who wasn't necessarily an out-and-out outside right, but I thought could I squeeze him in there, because like Bertie Auld had said, he's one of the best players that he'd played with, and he almost won the league twice with Leeds. So yeah, Bobby Collins was a consideration, but no, I went with Jimmy Delaney.
David?
The Kaiser, they say, only once saw play and remarked at the said, dearie me, my German artillery's just fit for the pillory. They can't shoot like young McAtee. Andy McAtee from Croy was very good right winger. Very Andy McAtee, but I really have to agree with the other two on this one. I think for contribution to Celtic, it has to be Jimmy Delaney. Twinkle Toes. I think it has to be, as he was called, Twinkle Toes and Old Baldy and things like that. Sorry, Matt, but he was called things like that. But Jimmy Delaney, because he won these 3 cup competitions in 3 countries in 3 separate decades with a war in between. And not only that, he scored the goal that won the Victory International for Scotland in 1946. 1946, the Victory International, I think, was a ball from Jackie Husband of Partick Thistle. Jimmy Delaney scored, and the whole nation, we'd have to be, and not least because of that lovely rhyme.
I think the rhyme on its own wins it anyway. I'm just surprised Liam didn't have. I'm just surprised Liam didn't have Jimmy Delaney at right back.
That's right, and goals. So what now, Mark? Is it outside left for doing?
Inside right. Number 8.
Number 8. Who wants to go first? Liam, number 8. Inside right.
This one is a guy who I've picked in his correct position with no consideration at all. It was an easy one for me. Was Patsy Gallagher. So he scored the goal in the 1925 Scottish Cup final where he somersaulted into the net with the ball between his feet. And there's a quote I've got it saved here, so forgive me for looking down. I'll read it. It's a quote from James E. Handley's The Celtic Storybook, and it said, from the days of Johnny Campbell, Willie Groves and Sandy McMacken, the prince of dribblers, to the era of Willie Fanny and Charlie Tully, the Celtic club has recruited a host of players whose ability with the ball has given ecstatic delight to the followers of soccer. But in that brilliant galaxy, no star has shone with the effulgence of Patsy Gallagher. And yes, it's there's no way you can't leave him out. From I mentioned at the start of the podcast, one of my friends, he's 75, and he said that his dad had said to him, Patsy Gallagher is the best Celtic player of all time, and his dad lived through seeing the Lisbon Lions and Jimmy Johnston, and then he felt that Patsy Gallagher was still better than him. So I know that's only anecdotal, but he's obviously was a special player.
Right, fantastic. David?
I have to quote my dad, who, if ever we're talking about any football player, Pelé, Garrincha, Stanley Matthews, even Jimmy Johnson, my father would say, look, you never saw Patsy Gallagher. And that was just it. End of story. Patsy Gallagher was number one, and no disputing that. And I have to go by my dad. My dad's judgment on football players was actually quite good. What I saw with the modern, the 1960s players, he was quite a good judge of football player. But I would have to be Patsy Gallagher.
That's okay. Matt, you got it there, haven't you?
I think he's promoting material here, David. I feel that Simon Kell and the X Factor here, it's a yes from me as well, absolutely. Mighty Atom, Patsy Gallagher, number 8. And somebody mentioned earlier on about the physicality of the game, getting way back there. And apparently, by all accounts, if you look at photos, Patsy Gallagher was a wee wiry guy, 5 foot nothing, and be up against these defenders. Yeah. And so he had enough talent to render them, just to become the supreme talent that he was. Liam mentioned the somersault goal in the 1925 Cup final, which obviously is stuff of myth, it's stuff of legend now. And I think the one thing I remember about Patsy Gallagher is I think when Celtic let him go in something like 1926, he didn't want to leave, he didn't know about it. Celtic sold him, I think, to Falkirk, and he then went on to become a star with Falkirk for something like 5 or 6 seasons. Is that the case? So yeah, Patsy Gallagher was a shoe-in for me at number 8.
Do you know the story? I was going to tell the story about when he played. It was at Ibrox, and in these days they had community singing, and the guy that was doing the community singing wasn't making much again. Well, back again, will you no come back? And my father and them joined in because I Falkirk that day.
I think it's important as well just to say that
no argument, Patsy Gallagher.
The type of player Patsy Gallagher was, he was described in the press as a genius dribbler. So he's almost like that Jimmy Johnson's style of player, like the type of players that we're famous for, having those flair sort of players. So obviously the somersault kind of hints at that, but he was amazing at running past people with the ball. And say I've just noted down his goal record is 192 goals in 464 games. So he was a goal scorer on top of being able to take it past half a team and improvise with things like somersaults into the net.
Yeah, I was wanting to ask you guys about that somersault, because if you look on the Celtic wiki and there's various little cartoons, etc., depicting what happened, but if you take a goal, like for instance Murdo MacLeod's goal in the 4-2 game, and no television there that night, and people that were at the game will describe it as 30 yards, 35 yards into the top corner, and it was probably 25 yards. But it's, the importance and the significance and just the delight of it is exaggerated, so that there's this 35 yards shot. And I've always wondered if through the support talking, one story getting told on to another story, and it became a bigger thing, a more spectacular thing than it probably was, even though it probably was a brilliant goal.
Shame on you for even suggesting that, Mr. Paul. I'm not having that. There's drawings in the newspaper.
The funny thing about that one, Paul,
create the goal.
The funny thing about that one is that my father, who was at the game, has no great recollection of that goal. He said it was just a scrimmage, you know, whereas he remembers clearly Jimmy McGrory scoring the winner, you know, from Gene McFarlane's free kick. He remembers that vividly, and he would demonstrate how it happened. He would dive on a couch or a bed or something to show McGrory scoring, but he's no great recollection of Patsy Gallagher's goal. So we don't know. But Patsy Gallagher was the best player of them all.
Well, I was going to say I knew Tommy Gemmell really well, especially his latter years. And Tommy, when he wasn't well, but if he started talking about football, he wanted to talk about it, and he would really come, you know, he would just brighten up, and he would remember things. And one of the things he would always talk about is he missed a penalty against Hearts at Tynecastle. And this penalty would be something we talk about often. You know, he would do all these gala stuff about did you score the goal in the European Cup final, which one, all that stuff. But this penalty seemed to get him. He seemed to apologise for it.
Was that not a game that they won 3-0 anyway?
No, I think we got nothing each, and we could have won the league or something.
Yeah, we did win the league. It was my first visit to Tynecastle. I'll tell you, it was the 28th of March 1970, my wee sister's birthday.
And was that before they put you on telly?
Somehow, say again?
Was that before they put you on TV when you went there?
As before I was a TV star at Tynecastle, that's right. Oh, thanks for reminding. Thanks for giving Balls the prompt there. But as I said, yeah, so my dad somehow managed to wangle a day pass to take me through to Edinburgh to see Celtic winning the league. They only needed a point. And Big Tommy, it's Jim Cruikshank. I remember we were in what would be the old enclosure, just in front of the main stand at Tynecastle, so it was at the Gorgie end. And Tommy, as he just leathered the ball, and somehow Jim, I guess it's a 50-50 call, and the chances are sometimes Tommy went right down the middle, but on this occasion, I think he put it one to the side. Jim Cruikshank went the right way and stopped it. And the game finished goalless, but that was the point. I think that was the 4 in a row, 6, 7, 8, 9, sorry, 5 in a row.
No,
my first visit to Tynecastle, I think I only ever missed 3. But I remember that one. I'm surprised he remembers it to that extent.
Well, Tommy remember it, I tell you.
Just to go back.
I seem to remember them though score winning 3-0, and Gemmell missed a penalty late on about 67. I don't know about that. Maybe I'll look that one up. But that day you mentioned, Matt, I think Celtic won the league anyway because Rangers only drew as well. Is that right?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think we only needed a point. You might be thinking of 68 when Rangers lost to Aberdeen. The day
I'm not going.
No, but certainly that day we won the league with a goalless draw, and that was, as I say, that was 1970. The other penalty, Tommy missed 3. I think one was against Kilmarnock. I'm struggling to think what the third one was, but it was something like 61 out of 64 conversions. It's a tremendous rate.
Well, other things he talked about, and it was these sort of strange things. They went on tour in America, and he was at Steen to play him at centre forward. So he played centre forward. He got his wish, and he played centre forward and scored a hat trick. No, that was him. He got his one chance centre forward, a hat trick. Then he went in goals. It was against Clyde. He went in goals.
And Ronnie
and he never lost a goal.
a couple of times did it at Hampden,
Yeah.
I think, as well, against maybe Ayr United. So but what a character he was, big Colin, my goodness.
He never lost a goal as a goalkeeper. Centre forward, 1 game, 3 goals.
He should really be in. I was going to say, if he'd have been born a bit earlier, he'd have been in with a shout as a goalkeeper.
That's right. I know. It's an attempt to get Tommy in the team. But anyway,
Did
what
you ask-
position we want now, Matt?
Did you ask him if he believed Patsy Gallagher's somersault really happened?
Oh,
Because James McGrory, there's a video, the Celtic story that they brought out, and I think they brought it out in '67. And James McGrory talks about that goal in that video that the club released. Where he said that Patsy Gallagher went past a few players, and then as he stumbled in the box, he done it. And they say there's that many reports, so you can't spoil everyone's fun. Definitely happened. But there was one report that I looked at when I was trying to see if I could get more information on it, and one of them just said, I can't remember which newspaper it was, but it just said Celtic got a free kick and Patsy Gallagher scored from the resulting play. And that was their only description of it.
I wish I hadn't heard that. I only the pleasure of meeting Jimmy McGrory once in my life as a wee boy, and he signed his sort of biography for me. I've still got it to Mark from Jimmy McGrory, which obviously is pretty special, something pretty special to me now. But I was going to say, but in his book, he talks about the goal, the Patsy Gallagher goal has been extraordinary. So I guess you choose to believe what you will. I'm going with the acrobatic somersault. I think it's a wonderful story.
It's only rivaled by Carlton Cole's goal at Stranraer, where he did like a forward roll, and I think he handballed it in the net.
That's what I put in Inverness.
I think Patsy was a wee bit better than Carlton Cole was, though. I think he was a wee bit a better player.
Well, David, we've no came to centre forwards yet. You don't know where I've got it.
could maybe be calling him the Iron Man after the news today as well.
Oh, you're ahead of me. I've been working away all day, so I don't know what that means.
Check the he was in the papers today for an incident. And right, so Matt, what position do we do now, centre forward?
We're doing number 9, and I'm glad you came to me first because it's the man we've just been speaking about for me. So I mean, this is probably I was going to say, in terms of leaving someone out, this was the toughest call because obviously Jimmy Quinn has absolute legendary status. But for me, it's Jimmy McGrory. It's the Prince of Garngad, 550 goals. It's a scoring record that you would relate to somebody like Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. It's just the greatest goal scorer ever in top flight football in these islands, and he played for Celtic with the exception of spell at Clydebank and loan. He played his full career at Celtic. Only my height, and he scored so many goals with his head. Fabulous goals. So one of the greatest Celts of all time. James Edward McGrory for me, number 9.
And David, so that would be like McGrory of the Arsenal, just like Nicholas of the Arsenal.
Yeah, yes, that was one of the things that I admire McGrory for. He didn't go to the Arsenal when he was given the opportunity to do so. Twice, I believe he was given the opportunity, but wouldn't go. I've agonised about this one, whether McGrory or Quinn. And frankly, I can't really split them, but on sheer facts alone, and the fact that McGrory scored more goals, you really have to go with McGrory. I would have to agree with it. It hurts me to leave Jimmy Quinn out of any team. And if there is going to be a substitute, it would have to be Jimmy Quinn. Jimmy Quinn's definitely my substitute, if McGrory is the centre forward.
David, can I ask you for the two centre forwards to compare their record for me against Rangers?
Against Rangers, I would suspect that Quinn did better against Rangers. Am I right? I would suspect that. Goals per game and things like that. I think he did. Yeah. But no, McGrory, his 1935 the 36 season alone speaks for itself. I mean, he scored the same amount of goals in a season as Henrik Larsson did in 2001. And that says it all as well, doesn't it?
It does.
Just a wee pointer on that question you asked about Rangers. I'm pretty certain that Jimmy Quinn holds the record for scoring the most hat-tricks. Jimmy McGrory never managed a hat-trick against Rangers. He scored 55 hat-tricks, 56 if you give him the double hat-trick for the day he scored the 8. He scored 55, 56 hat-tricks, not one of them was against Rangers. Was Jimmy Quinn, to my knowledge, is at least three. At least three. Yeah, quite incredible. No, I think he's the only man ever to score 2 hat-tricks against Rangers for Celtic.
So at least if we were picking a scalper, he would be the man then.
I couldn't possibly comment.
The most famous one, of course, be one that made Jimmy Quinn.
Say again, David?
Hey, David?
I lost that one. He moved to Liam.
Liam, centre forward.
I should probably say these are done by Celtic Curio on Twitter before I show it again.
Are you on commission?
He said
I'm emailing them after this show.
472 goals in 445 games for Celtic. And in his whole career, I think 550 goals in 547 games. But as well as being the British record goal scorer, I think he was the 8th highest goal scorer in the history of world football. But it might have changed now because I think Ronaldo and possibly Messi has maybe come into that. So he might, but he's definitely in the top 10 anyway of all time worldwide goal scorers. But obviously, Scotland must have had an amazing centre forward. I think he played 7 games for Scotland, scored 6 goals. He must have got dropped for the game he didn't score in. But so there's no way you can leave McGrory out of a team. I mean, he scored 8 goals in a game against Dunfermline once. He's saying to score like almost 30 goals more than appearances, and to be part of really successful Celtic teams. And then he gave his whole life to Celtic and was treated quite badly by the club as well. But here's a question I put out. Obviously, we've never seen him play, although apparently, if we go by what David said, then Matt might have done. But who is better, or who would you pick if you had to choose one between Larsson or McGrory? Because I'm going to put my neck out there and say I'll go for McGrory, because you can't beat that record of one of the highest goal scorers worldwide ever.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody could argue that, really.
I don't know the answer.
Well, put it this way: if the Celtic support decided to erect a statue outside Celtic Park for a player, and it was between those two, I think McGrory would win that hands down. So I think that would answer the question. And I think McGrory should have a statue outside Celtic Park.
So do I.
Can I throw a wee question in there? Who do you may know the answer to this already. When Jimmy McGrory was asked to name his own favourite centre forward for Celtic, who would that be?
I don't know.
He wouldn't qualify. I'll give you a clue. He wouldn't qualify for our team tonight. Jimmy McGrory, when he was asked to pick his favourite team of Celtic players, who did he pick as centre forward?
John McPhail?
No, Joe McBride.
Joe McBride, yeah. Joe McBride.
He thought he was a perfect striker, Joe McBride.
Joe McBride.
What a compliment that is, eh?
Wasn't there
the best like we've ever seen.
Wasn't there a quote as well that one time in his early stages of his career that Pele said that if he manages to score half the amount of goals that McGrory scored, then he would have had a great career?
Wow.
I'm sure I'd read that before.
Pretty incredible, really.
Pele wouldn't have got a game for Celtic if McGrory was around anyway.
Have everybody done that position? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's three for Jimmy. Yeah.
Jimmy, okay. So
it has to be McGrory, yep.
Yeah. Number 10. You want to start, Liam?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is gonna really, I think, upset David. Because when he sees who my outside left is afterwards, then that's when the tears might begin. But I've gone with Charlie Tully for the inside left. You see, there's the famous stories of the corners he scored at Brockville against Falkirk, where he took a corner and scored directly from it, and the ref made him retake it, and he'd just done the same thing again. And he'd already scored directly from a corner for Ireland as well against England. And there's footage of that on YouTube as well. If you type that in, like just type in Charlie Tully corner kick goal, that one will come up. There's a story by Sean Fallon that said about Charlie Tully, how cheeky he was to his opponents, that he got the nickname Cheeky Charlie. That he said to one of his opponents before, when he just kept dribbling round him, said, "You'd be better off sitting in the stands, son." And just he used to just taunt his opponents in that sort of cheeky, kind of light-hearted way. So he was another, like Patsy Gallagher that we mentioned, a really skillful player. He didn't score the same amount of goals, but he was that type of player that would excite fans and be able to dribble past people. And obviously this was in an era where Celtic didn't win many trophies. So he missed out on the Coronation Cup final, but had played in the games before the final. And then he played in the 7-1 game, the 1957 League Cup final as well. So had a big hand in two of the most sort of iconic matches in Celtic's pre-Lisbon history. So Charlie Tully, it had to kind of be him for me.
David, what do you think of that? You're still there, David? Matt, try you next.
Yeah, well, I'll kick in. It's my number 10 is Jimmy McMenemy. I'm going back again. So Napoleon named a guest, not just for his stature. I think there was a resemblance in stature and build, but more, I think, because his strategic planning. He was the architect of some fabulous Celtic teams. Under Willie Maley, won 6 Scottish Cup medals with Celtic, but he wasn't finished when Celtic let him go. He signed for Partick Thistle, and a wonderful wee twist that he came back after the 1909 riot at Hampden. The Scottish Cup final was moved away and played at various grounds. So in 1921, Thistle played Rangers in the final. So the final was played at Celtic Park, one of the last times, if not the last time. And Jimmy McMenemy played for Thistle and won a 7th Scottish Cup winners' medal. It was the last time Thistle won a major trophy before the game we don't talk about in 1971. So Jimmy McMenemy for me.
Remember that one?
You're losing us again, David. Maybe turn off your video.
All right. Well, right. Okay. Did you hear what I said about Jimmy McMenemy? Did you get that?
No.
Right. Did you get that? What I said about Jimmy McMenemy. Jimmy McMenemy would be my number 12. My number 10. Sorry, I'm getting annoyed at my computer not working.
Right. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, David. We can hear you now. So, that part.
Jimmy McMenemy, number 10. Napoleon.
That was my first time at Hampden, 1971 League Cup final.
Yeah.
Down the front. Still thought we'd win at half time, right?
Actually, I had a little story slightly involving Jimmy McMenemy. That was that I was with a friend. We were looking for Willie Maley's grave, and we walked around. We were trying to get up some videos from the Celtic Graves Society from their commemorations on YouTube to try and sort of see if we could picture where it was and find it. And we'd been there for about an hour walking around everywhere, and there was this woman that was walking her dog. So my friend went up to her and said, "Oh, excuse me, you don't know where Willie Maley's grave is, do you?" And I thought, there's no way just a random passerby is going to know that. And I was a bit kind of embarrassed that he'd gone over and started asking her that. And she said, "Oh, yeah. I'll take you to it." She took us straight there, and she said she was Jimmy McMenemy's granddaughter. And she said, yeah, Grandad used to talk about Willie Maley all the time. And we turned around and said, "Oh, Napoleon," and said, "Oh, you must be proud to have, someone like that in the family." And she said, "Oh, well, you're obviously big Celtic fans, but I don't like football." And that was kind of the end of the conversation.
Well, and that Willie Maley's book back out, actually, the soccer books, they've just republished it, which is it's quite a fascinating read. It's really quite interesting. I'm going to give it to you, Matt, to read.
I've got a loan of one of the originals, but it's a brilliant story. You feel like you're actually back in time listening to Willie speaking, because the language is very different.
The language is amazing.
And the language of the time, I found it fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. But that's soccer books if anybody's interested. And they're selling it. So is everybody picked at number 10 now? That's us.
Yeah.
Right, so we're now on to number 11 outside left. And do you want to start, David?
It's not. Okay, Charlie Tully. I'll agree with all that Liam said about Charlie Tully, except I would put him at outside left.
Okay.
Charlie Tully, very versatile player. He played, I think, in every forward position apart from centre forward, and a great player, Charlie Tully. Constant, and at times when he annoyed the supporters by showing off too much, but for that twice taken corner kick and other things, and the fact that he cheered everybody up at a time when Celtic needed a hero in my left wing. Okay.
Brilliant. He was in Lisbon as well, supporting, wasn't he? Matt, you're outside left.
Yeah, Charles Patrick Tully for me as well. Just wasn't even a contest for me at number 11. So
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
He talked about the game at Brockville. My dad was there, and to do that.
My dad was there too. That was a story that he would always get told when I was wee. That was the one story that I can remember getting. The earliest story I can remember getting told that all the time.
Again, it's incredible. As Liam mentioned earlier, he'd done it for Ireland and Belfast. So Charles, I mean, the stories about Charlie Tully, you'd love to have watched him play, but equally off the park as well. I mean, all the jokes about who's the guy in the white coat next to Charlie Tully in the Vatican, you know, and there was Charlie Tully ties, and just the stories are just brilliant. So Tully, another legendary figure, and as you say, played right across the front line, came to Belfast Celtic in 1948. And just lit the place up. Sadly died a young man. We've talked about a couple of Celts that have died young. Charlie, I think, was only 47, and Celtic were actually touring Ireland, so this would be 71. I actually do remember that. Celtic were touring Ireland at the time. I think Jock Stein and Big Billy were pallbearers at his funeral. So yeah, Charlie Tully, absolutely. I like, if you talk about Jimmy Johnson, you burst into, you immediately think of stories and start laughing. Do this in the tours all the time. Tully's the same for me. Wonderful player.
Liam, outside left.
My outside left, if you'll give me a moment while I just note down, this is all the forwards that didn't make it that I considered. But I won't go through all of them, but I mentioned some. So it was like sniper Jim McCall for the centre forward position. It was 123 goals in 169 games. The Duke, Sandy McLachlan, 171 goals in 217 games. So mention Jimmy McManamy. This is where David's going to get upset because he's not on my outside left either. I haven't shoehorned him in anywhere, so he's my substitute, Jimmy McManamy. Willie Buchan was another one that I'd considered. He went to Blackpool for £10,000, which was a record fee for a Scottish club to receive at the time. Frank Murphy was a really good outside left that he kind of provided a lot of assists for McGrory, so I'd considered him. Peter Scarf, who tragically died at a young age from TB, he had a really good goal record. I think it was 55 goals in 112 games. Charlie Napier, Johnny Crum, John Divers, John Campbell, that was probably Celtic's first major big goal scorer, Jim Blessington and Sammy Wilson, and none of them make the team because I've managed to squeeze Jimmy Quinn at outside left, because he did sometimes play at outside left, although he was obviously a better centre forward. But it was you can't leave out McGrory, so centre forward.
In fact,
Don't carry on.
Another outside left you could have mentioned, grossly underestimated. Adam McLean was he played a long time and played well for Celtic, you know.
Yeah. I'd have probably
Yeah.
got him in at right back or something.
He's
We'll get
in
Quinn in the
Liam's,
team. That's
he's in Liam's top 150, David.
yeah.
He's in Liam's top
Sorry?
150 guys that did back.
I know.
He's going to read out next.
But
I
getting
I just
Quinn in the
wanted to
team is
stress
the
that
final
I'm-
nail in the coffin for the old Rangers.
Yeah, we're playing a 2-3 117 formation now.
That's right.
But it's just to try and
so-
show you how difficult it is to leave out guys with that goal scoring record that you said, that sniper Jim McCall. He's not far off scoring like a goal every game. It's difficult, but McMenemy didn't make my team, and I was sure that was going to cause some sort of fallout. But
Sacked in the morning.
yeah,
Of
Right,
course,
so-
Liam, you've got to realise, Liam, that the reason why McCall scored so many goals was he was feeding you. Who can you score goals from?
I guess that was related to the service he got. Yeah.
yeah,
Some
yeah.
fabulous players like McMenemy.
So, in terms of the 12th man, then the substitute, you're allowed one ace up your sleeve. So, who would it be for you, Matt?
Jimmy Quinn for me. Liam's right back, come centre forward, come outside left. Jimmy Quinn for me.
Liam's going to bring on 5 substitutes now.
He's got a World Cup. He's got a World Cup squad. Yeah. Look at tight here, his squad.
Who are you going for, Liam?
So I had a short list of 42, and so I would say I went with Jimmy McMenemy was my substitute. I felt harsh leaving him out the team, but it was between basically Jimmy Quinn and McMenemy, and I just preferred Jimmy Quinn. So because he scored the hat trick in the 1904 Scottish Cup final that beat Rangers, so that kind of swung it. So yeah, I had to include Jimmy Quinn and leave McMenemy on the bench.
David, could you pick your substitute, but could you also pick who you would have coaching the team from the period before the Lisbon Lions? David?
Right. My substitute playing has to be substitute, but for versatility, Willie Fernie, because he could play. He's good for an injury. You never know when you're going to get an injury. Half back line coach. Actually, the coach couldn't be Jimmy McMenemy if he's playing, so it would have to be Willie Mealy himself. Couldn't
Okay. What about you, Matt?
be any other than Willie Mealy.
I wasn't sure if you were differentiating between coach and manager, because you were.
I was trying to.
You were trying to. Well, coach, as David mentioned, coach would probably possibly have been Jimmy McMenemy, because I think he was a de facto manager. But it's got to be Willie Mealy. Yeah, it's got to be Willie Mealy.
Okay. You agree with that, Liam?
Yeah, that one was easy.
Well, at least you've become. That's a question where you can't have 73 answers there.
Yeah, that's a 13 managers there.
So what we'll do then is, I think that's us got the basis of the team, so we'll compile it up and we'll maybe turn it into an article and we'll publish it on the Celtic Star in the next couple of days. Is everybody happy with that?
That would be good. But can I make one more suggestion? What would be nice?
Reading it, yes.
It'd be nice to hear the three teams read out.
Right, okay, we'll do it right. Well, do you want to start, Matt? Read out your team.
Yeah, sure. So in goals, John Thompson, Ali McNair, Sean Fallon, my fullbacks, Willie Fernie, James Kelly, and Bobby Evans as a half-back line, and Jimmy Delaney, Patsy Gallagher, Jimmy McGrory, Jimmy McMenemy, and Charlie Tully. with Jimmy Quinn on the bench and Willie Maley in the dugout.
Okay, David, do you read out your team?
I can't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said Shaw, McNair, and Delaney, Gallagher. Am I right?
Well, I didn't get it all, David, but yeah, we'll sort it for the Celtic Star article, right? Liam, have you got your team there?
So yeah, mine was Charlie Shaw in goal, McNair and Dodds as the back two, then the half-back line, Jim Young, James Kelly and Peter Wilson, then the forward line, Jimmy Delaney at outside right, Patsy Gallagher, Jimmy McGrory, Charlie Tully, who I forgot to do that, and outside left, Jimmy Quinn. And Jimmy McMenemy on the bench.
Okay, that's brilliant, guys. So we'll have the article up in the Celtic Star in the next few days, and hope everyone. Sorry, we had a bit of problems with the internet that David's in tonight, and we'll try and get that sorted for the next time, and we'll get it up in the Celtic Star in the next day or two. So look forward to reading that. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.